Varsha Vinn.
Hi.
How's it going?
Good. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you so much for taking the time. I want to start out by thanking Zaina Eftimos for introducing us.
She's wonderful.
She spoke super highly of you.
Really?
And she did. And I was surprised that you were involved in the writing of her most recent single that she released with Talal.
Mhm.
My understanding is that Talal is who connected you guys together, or
Yes.
can you talk about how you guys know each other just so we can kind of get a sense for that?
Yes. So I actually worked with Spinworks.
Okay.
Man.
Man, yeah.
So I've been like working with Man for a while. And
You know what's funny about Man? I know Man. I met Man in the US.
Okay.
I'm friends with his brother.
That's true.
Because
That's true.
Zaina mentioned, she's like, do you know Man? I was like, I've heard the name, but I hadn't seen him. So when I saw the picture, I was like, yeah, of course. So I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I know Man.
Oh, so
and
cool.
we're supposed to connect this weekend, so go ahead.
Small world.
Yeah, exactly.
So I work with Man, and he's one of the first few people that I met when I moved to Dubai.
Yep.
And he's seen my work and he supported it. So he had an opportunity over the pandemic. He was like, there's this Arabic song that needs English lyrics.
Yep.
So would you be interested? And I didn't know Talal at that point, but I was like, yeah, sure, I'm down. Like it's a paid gig, so cool. So I ended up, they sent me the music, and then he connected me with Talal.
Mhm.
I didn't know that Talal was, so reputed here. He has such a good reputation in the UAE. I mean, in the Middle East.
Middle East, yeah.
So I was really excited, and I heard the track, and because, my music is moving a lot towards Eastern influence in pop, I was like, this is perfect. And so he sent me the song, and I literally sent the song to Man in like half an hour. I was like, this is it. Here we go. So Talal loved it. And they ended up using the English lyrics. And I think they also ended up using like the pre-chorus melody for the Arabic stuff. I'm like, this is so cool. And then when the song came out, it sounded so wonderful. And Zaina sang it.
Yeah.
And that's just like, it happened so out of the blue. I didn't know what to expect out of it, but it turned out to be so good. Like people loved it, and I felt so nice to be a part of it. It was different.
That's great. I have to say, Varsha, you have one of the most exciting voices I've heard in a really, really long time. And I don't say that to many people. I kid you not. You have such a unique and distinct voice. I'm super critical to tone. You have an amazing voice, and I think you're going to go places.
Thank you.
There's a lot of talent everywhere, but there's something super unique. This is not to say that other people's voices don't sound good, but there's something very unique that really touched me. Your voice has a texture and the timbre and a vulnerability. From the second I played the first track, I was like, this girl is amazing.
Thank you so much.
I think you're onto something, and I hope you keep doing what you're doing, because it's really incredible. And your songwriting, I don't know how much of it you do on your own versus with other people, but it's top notch.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
You're welcome. I mean that from the bottom of my heart.
What was the song that you liked, that you heard?
The first single, I heard the two that really caught my attention were here. I don't want to butcher this. Hold on. There's one about So the one was filmed here. It's the
Reveal Me.
Yes. That one, and the other one. God, I don't remember. I don't recall the
names.
Name a few and I'll tell you.
Tempo?
Not Tempo.
No. Summer Fever?
No.
Muse.
Muse, yes. Sorry.
Muse is my favorite
Muse,
too.
That's the one that really like kind of stuck in my head, even though like, you wouldn't think that since I couldn't remember the name, but
no.
It's honestly, your voice is incredible.
Thank you.
And kudos to whoever produced it, because it's super well done.
It was Ali Mustafa.
Is he based out of here?
He was actually the reason I moved to Dubai, but he actually left to Pakistan, went back home. Okay. But we still work together, but he was the one who kind of brought me out to Dubai, and rest is history. But
so let's talk about where you're from. Let's kind of fill in the gaps a little bit. How you ended up here, where you're from, and kind of what your journey's been like, just so we get a better sense of that.
All right. Long story short.
It can be a long story long.
It can be a long story long. Okay. I was born and raised in India, Bangalore. Mm-hmm. And so I started singing when I was 2 years old. My family is into music, obviously, like they're into Indian music. And I was kind of put into that path, but I didn't really resonate with it. And I grew up a very rebellious child. because I lost my dad when I was 9.
Oh,
and
sorry to hear that.
and I was raised by a single mom. And so I got a perspective of the world that a lot of people didn't. And it was bad and good at the same time. It shaped me into a really strong person and kind of adventurous and rebellious because, my mom, she struggled a lot. We struggled a lot. And, she raised me by herself in a society where they're not very accepting of female musicians or people who are like me, people who look like me, or people who act the way that I do. But I was just consistently rebellious, which obviously was it was really like troublesome for my mother. But she never gave up on me, and she knew that there was something special, and she knew that there was something different about me. She always pushed me to explore myself.
Did she recognize that you had a skill in singing or in music?
Yeah, so she was the one who pushed me onto stage when I was 2 years old.
Okay,
like
gotcha.
I was in like fashion shows and singing competitions. So I've been on stage for a very long time. But I didn't start writing songs until I was 14. So I started writing because of feeling really isolated growing up, because I'm an only child also.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
And I didn't really have a lot of friends, and I miss like a father figure in my life, which I didn't know back then. Now I know why I was, traumatized and why I felt the need to express myself.
Yep.
And nobody around me felt the way I felt. So that's when I started putting pen to paper, literally pen to paper, like not iPhone.
There was still a pen and paper.
It was basically like the back of my physics textbook. That was the first time I wrote a song, and I was in the back seat, of my class, and I hated school. And, that's when I started writing, and then I didn't know that I wanted to be a songwriter.
Have you always written in English?
Yes, always. Okay. So I went to an all-English school.
Okay, gotcha.
I've spoke because the city that I come from is so diverse that all my friends spoke in English. We all spoke in English because we come from different parts of India.
So that's the common.
It's the common language, and so I've been speaking English my whole life, and that's what I think and that's what I dream in. It's who I am.
It's a natural extension.
It's who I am, and but it's beautiful because I get to connect with people with that language, So when I was 15, I actually, a teacher of mine told me about an exchange program to the US. And I was like, man, great, I got to get out of here. So I applied for it. It was like a scholarship, and, I got in with merit. And I left when I was 15.
Was this academic or was
academic?
Okay, gotcha.
So I went to the States in Colorado, and I went to DC first. So it was like a training, obviously.
What part of DC?
No part of DC. It was like youth exchange program. So it was like in a hotel, basically.
Okay,
they were doing a training for students.
In Washington,
DC.
Because I lived in DC for 15
cool.
15
and then
years.
They took us to the US state, like Senate and everything.
Gotcha,
It was
so you did
cool.
the whole tour.
They did the whole tour because we were kind of representing our countries. So there were people from all over the world. So now I have friends from literally all over the world.
That's great.
Because I got to meet that, and that opened my eyes to a world bigger than, and possibilities bigger than where I come from. So I lived with an American family for high school. I did my high school.
Oh, that's great.
And I lived
in Denver, I assume,
in Colorado Springs.
Colorado Springs, that's beautiful,
And it was beautiful. Like I got kind of like a wholesome American experience because I lived with like a white family. I had like 2 sisters and 2 dogs and a cat. And we lived in like a house with a backyard. And, I got to experience high school. I made some amazing friends, and my host father, he was a country guitarist in the Air Force Band.
Oh wow, that's awesome!
So I watched him perform at a festival, and I was like, "This is beautiful." So I asked him to teach me a couple chords on the guitar because he had like tons of guitars in the house, and I think that's when I started picking up the passion for playing the guitar.
Gotcha. Were you playing any instrument at the time?
No.
So that was
That was my first time, and I also started writing a lot, and I would just show it to him. I would show it to my friends in my high school, and it was so basic. Like I wasn't that good of a writer, but they all loved it, and they were like, "Oh my God, you should be a songwriter." I'm like, "Really? Like, is that a thing?"
Yeah. Oh, so you didn't even know that was a thing?
I knew that being a singer was a thing, or being an artist was a thing, but I didn't know that being a songwriter was like a profession in itself, and I didn't know that I had it in me. So I was like, okay, cool. So I did so much research about it, and I was like, cool, I gotta like get better at this. So I looked up Berklee and I saw it, and I was like, okay, this is where I have to go. So I came back to India and I applied to Berklee, and there was an audition. So by then I was writing a lot. So I got into the studio in Bangalore. I was recording all the time. It was like it was kind of like practice for me. Now I look back at it, it's so awful, but I wrote a lot of cheesy songs. I wrote so much, and I had like this book with like a Grammy on it, and I had like this book of like a songwriting book basically, and I'd written about like 400 songs, and I wrote a lot all the time, and I was doing country actually back then, country pop.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So kind of Taylor Swifty-ish.
Yeah, Taylor Swifty, Shania Twain-ish, kind of, romantic love songs, and 16. Like, what else am I going to write about?
And had your guitar playing improved? Like, were you getting better?
Of course, yeah. So I came back home and I got myself my first guitar. It wasn't with a pickup. It was just purely acoustic. It was a Fender, and I was so excited. And I would basically be playing it all the time. And I actually got way more rebellious after coming back from the States, because I got to experience a life that I could live
with no boundaries,
with freedom, with no boundaries, and I could be whoever I wanted to be. That kind of made it harder on my mother, because I became worse than I was before. But I told her that I wanted to be a musician. I wanted to be a songwriter. I actually told her that over Skype when I was in the States, and she was like, okay, if that's what you want, then I'm going to support you. So that's when she started supporting me for that. And then when I auditioned for Berklee, I took my big songwriting book, and then like after the audition, I had an interview. At the interview, I was like, yeah, this is what I do. I was like so like overzealous, I was just so like bubbly all the time, and I was so passionate about it, and they obviously saw it. And a few months later, I got my acceptance letter to Berklee, but I didn't get a scholarship. So I was so bummed, because obviously, like, I come from a lower middle class family in India. I could not even dream of paying like $25,000 a semester. That's just a lot. But I didn't want to give up. Like,
this is a 4-year program, I assume.
Yeah. And I just didn't want to give up. So I had my book, and I took my guitar, and I spoke to my mom, and I was like, why don't you like talk to your friends and see if they can connect me with people? I can ask them if they can like pitch in a little bit here and there to help me out. I remember like I went to probably 400 offices in Bangalore, like asking them for help. And I would write letters to like people, like the bigger people in India who like, and they're
the more established people.
Now I'm way more realistic, I guess, which I don't know if it's a good thing, but I felt like there was no boundary. Like, I would just write letters to people. I'm like, hey, I'm Varsha. I'm like 17. I need help with college. I want to go to Berklee. And the thing is that I learned a lot at that point itself. Like, I learned that people wouldn't support what I did just because it wasn't Indian music. It wasn't what was expected of me. And the fact that it was a music degree was like appalling to them. And I was so broken. I was like, I would randomly go to offices and like just sit there. I'm like, I want to talk to your CEO. And they're like, what for? And like, they were like, I don't know. They weren't even doing music. They were just doing like, I don't know, like
pharmaceuticals
or like engineering, or like, it was so weird. But I also went to like organizations and trusts, and none of them would support me because it was a music degree. And I was so heartbroken, but I was also like, I was honestly, by the end of it, I had to kind of accept my acceptance in a few days, and I was really upset. But a family friend of mine told me that he had spoken to the CEO of a really big pharmaceutical company who did own like who also had companies in the US. Gotcha. So he was aware of the music. So I was like, okay, I might as well. So he's like, why don't we all meet in his office and see if he would be interested. And I went to the office, and he was like, can you sing a song? Like, just, and then I remember I sang Lady Antebellum because I was so obsessed with them back then.
I Need You Now, or which one?
No, it was really, really, it was not a popular song.
Okay.
It was
Is there a reason you picked that particular song?
It's something that really spoke to me. It was a really sad song too. I mean, Yeah, but
did
I
you
do
play it and sing it, or
no, I
did you
didn't
just
take my
sing?
guitar.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
But I did, I did show him my song, my
Yeah.
book, and like, this is what I write. I got in, and it's not easy to get in, so please help, And then he was like, "Why should I help you?" I was so cocky. I was like, "Because I'm going to be a legend someday." And he wrote me a check for $10,000 that day.
That's
so
incredible.
I must have done something right.
That's awesome. That's amazing.
But it kind of, a lot of people started helping, after that. Like it kind of manifested itself because I'd put in so many months of faith in it that nothing could stop me to get to where I wanted to. And it wasn't easy, obviously, when I went to Boston and I had to live off campus, and, my mom had to like send me money for like, and Boston's so expensive, you know that.
Yeah.
And I would go like a week without eating sometimes. Like it was so hard. But I had this like fire inside me to be a better songwriter. I knew that I had to. So I went there. I would have like writing sessions like every day. I would be like, "Hey, you want to write with me? Like, do you want to write?" And I would meet people, and like I would have like 3 to 4 writing sessions every day.
That's awesome.
And I was also studying like.
What's your specialty? Did you go for a songwriting degree? Okay.
So I went for I took halfway through I did music business also, but I dropped out because I wanted to like, it was just double degree, it was too much. So I did study like halfway through on campus, but I couldn't afford it after that because my sponsorship fell through. It was just too expensive. I was like, it's fine. I got what I wanted. Like I made all the contacts that I needed. I met all the people my team, and I was like, yeah, whatever. But yeah, the journey through Berklee was amazing, and I learned so much being there. And then I came back to India, and I was kind of
This is after the 4 years of when you dropped.
This was like 2.5. I was there for like 3 years, but I did like semesters on and off.
Gotcha.
This is my last semester. I'm finishing up on Berklee Online.
Oh, gotcha. Okay,
so I had like 3 semesters left.
Got it.
And now I'm finishing. So
got it.
Yeah.
Before I forget, I hope you write a song called "I'm Gonna Be a Legend One Day." I kid you not. I hope you do that as a favor. I hope you write a song called "I'm Gonna Be a Legend Someday."
That would be.
You should do that. You should. You talk about manifesting.
I think it's so crazy because I feel like if I would say that now, internally I would feel so cocky. But back then I really believed it.
I want you to reconnect with that moment. I mean,
I think I should too.
Draw from that moment because that's clearly a pivotal point in your life.
It was.
You know what I mean? So dedicate that song to whoever you were then. Forget whether it's cocky or not.
Yeah.
It's that innocence. It's that confidence.
Yeah.
If you write it from that perspective.
I think the confidence came from the innocence.
That's what I'm saying. If you write it for, I don't want to say that little girl, but for that girl, for that, rebel. Write it from a rebellious standpoint. I guarantee you, if you write it with passion and with heart, it's going to resonate.
Yeah. Okay.
Do you remember Bruno Mars's song "Billionaire"?
I want to be a billionaire, so freaking bad.
That song. So a lot would argue that it's cocky, right? But do you know how many people sing that song and like can relate to it?
Yeah, because a lot of people want to be that.
That's what I'm saying.
That's so
everybody,
true.
I don't think everybody wants to be a legend, but I'm guaranteed a lot of people want to feel like they mattered and they were here for a reason. You know what I'm saying?
It's beautiful.
So if you look at it from that perspective, I think you might be onto something.
Okay, I will.
All right, so continue.
Okay, I will. So yeah, I was in India kind of just floating and trying to figure things out. I was still recording, I was still writing, but I didn't.
What was the scene like there, or what is the scene like there?
I did do a lot of shows. I found it really, really hard to fit in. I always found it really hard to fit in back home. I always felt like an outsider looking in.
Sure.
I'm sure I feel like that everywhere I go. Just because, I feel like, I don't know if it's who I am or, if maybe it's my perspective that's a little faded or if it's actually true. But I have what I do believe to be true is my intuition. My intuition's really strong about
following that.
Yeah, any room I walk into, I know what kind of people they are and what energy it is. I'm so sensitive to that. And I know like who is genuine and who's not. So it's really hard for me to fake my way through it because it's just impossible for me to. And I feel like a lot of people live like that and I'm just not comfortable with that. So I just choose not to be a part of that.
Yeah, makes sense.
The scene is interesting because it's supportive, but there's also a lot of groups. I think that's just everywhere. But
sure.
it's not very welcoming to outsiders.
Is there more of an English speaking scene or music?
There is.
More so than when you started, I would assume?
Yes. But what I've noticed is that the moment that I started doing this, people would just crush me. They would be like, why can't you sing in Indian languages? You think you're so cool to, And I was like, how do you explain to people that you have a passion for something, and it does not mean that you disrespect a certain language. It's just that you connect with something.
That's what it is. It's a connection.
It's a connection. And so because of that, I felt like I just got nowhere just because I wouldn't play into the rules. The rule was that if you sing in English, you better sing in other Indian languages to make it, to be famous.
Sure.
But for me, it's not just about being famous. Of course, I want to be famous. Of course, I want to be noticed and recognized, but I want to do that on my terms.
Yeah.
And I want to do that because I'm passionate about something, not just make a song to get famous. Like, that's not going to last. And I also believe that there's so many people in India who do sing in vernacular languages that are really passionate about it and then that deserve it. So I shouldn't just pretend to want to do it. So I felt I struggled with that a lot. And I still do. Like, people still message me and they're like, oh, why can't you, I do sometimes sing in Indian languages, like, but it's just passionate for me. Like, it's when I want to. It's not because I have to.
Right. That makes sense.
So I did struggle with that. I did do a few shows, but it's like they don't pay really well, and as a woman also, it's hard. And there's so many factors. So many factors. You have to have a lot of money to like do marketing, and that's anywhere in this world. It's a
struggle, yeah. It's a lot harder to be an independent artist today.
It is.
I mean, it's always been difficult.
But I didn't get the kind of opportunities there to fund myself.
Sure.
So I, honestly, Dubai just happened out of the blue, but it came as a big blessing in my life. So Ali, when I was going through this phase, I was just doing shows and trying to figure out like what I'm going to do. He reached out and he was like, I saw your work online and I would love to work on a song with you. I was like, oh, cool. And I checked out some of his work and it was amazing. And he was also trying to get into like an English scene because he'd done more like Bollywood stuff.
Okay, gotcha.
And I heard his music.
And he was based here at the time?
Yeah, he was based here.
Okay.
And his music was incredible. It was like so futuristic. And I was like, why doesn't anybody know him?
Yeah.
And he's also really low-key as a person. So we worked on a song together, like online on Skype. And we worked on like other stuff. And I wrote for his other artists as well who were trying to, and that's when I kind of started writing for other people, other artists. I didn't know I could do that either.
Both male and female?
Yeah.
Okay, that's great.
We kind of built this friendship over the span of a few months. And then he was like, why don't you come and check out Dubai? I was like, Dubai? Like, what? Why?
It wasn't even on the map for you.
No,
yeah.
I mean, nobody even knows that there's a scene here, which something we should get into.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, I'll think about it. And, I was like, and he was like, don't worry about it. Like, I'll get your visa. And like, because I couldn't afford it.
Yeah.
And obviously, like, I was like, I don't know, I have to talk to my mother. And my mom spoke to him and his wife. And they were so lovely. And they were like, don't worry about it. Like, we'll take care of her. So I came here just like, obviously, because I'm me. And I was like, yeah, screw it. I came here. And it honestly, like, they're my family now. Like,
what year is this?
This was 2018.
Okay.
So I just came here. I was just recording in his studio.
Yeah.
I wasn't working, obviously. And, we were just recording. And then I met I got so close to his wife. And they kind of like took care of me like their daughter. It was so beautiful. And I was like, this is so rare. Like how you just randomly meet people. And, he kind of he guided me so much. Like when I came here, I was a little lost. And he taught me so much about the industry. And he kind of like prepared me for it.
That's
and
great.
we worked on Muse actually in 2018 and nobody knows that I released this in 2020. It took 2 years to release it. So I would sit in the studio and then it became a home studio. So I would be like in the home studio late nights with Lily in LA and we would just be writing and recording and writing. So I kind of started creating and I had this confidence that, okay, this is good. This is a good step.
Yeah.
And then I met a couple people in Dubai and they were like, why don't you like try to do shows here? I'm like, really? Like, and I started to check out the scene.
Yep.
And I was like, this is so cool.
You hadn't performed still at this point? This is all writing?
All writing and all just creating.
And were you like singing demos for artists and stuff like that as well? Like, for instance, if you were writing for...
Yes, I was doing that too. Yeah, I was doing that. And so it was... Yeah, and then we were like working with some clients, and like obviously I was getting paid for my songwriting, and I was like, this is good. And yeah, so I was like, okay, let me just give it a shot. So I was actually back in India, and I sent my profile to a bunch of agencies here because they told me about the Facebook groups. Yep. I was like, okay, let me just try. And I applied, and they were like, when can you be here? Because I got like 2 residencies at Blue Waters and in Madinat. And I was like, okay, well, looks like I'm moving to Dubai. Like it just happened out of nowhere, but it also felt like right.
Yep.
Because I got so much experience being on stage because of
That's priceless. I mean, listen, a lot of artists that you may have emulated as a kid or still never had that chance. Do you know what I mean? Like a lot of people don't realize how important it is to gig and to perform and to read the crowd, because that'll come in super handy in the future, you know?
Absolutely. With every show that I do, I learn something new, and they've been good shows, and you know, shows that nobody give a damn about me, and it's just, you know, you're performing for the money. And but I actually started to make good income. I was able to, you know, survive and live by myself and fund my music projects and, you know, music videos. And I felt like, okay, like things are moving slowly. And honestly, my growth kind of accelerated so much in Dubai in the past 2 years.
Yeah.
You know, I've worked on so many, I'm still continuing to work on so many songs. I'm working with different producers now. I've met so many incredible people. I've performed at like amazing shows. So it's just, it doesn't feel like it's something that happened out of the blue, to be honest, because it's kind of like a manifestation of all the work I put in over the years.
The preparation.
It's kind of like the fruit of all the hard work. And so yeah, that's just where I am right now. I'm here and I'm just trying to figure out like what's next. Obviously, like as we all are.
Do you know what's next? Have you thought about what would be next for you?
I haven't. Honestly, over the pandemic, it's just, there were so many like twists and turns that I realized that just planning things is probably, planning things is like, I have like a 3 to 4 month plan. But beyond that, I'm just trying not to think so much. I want to like travel. I want to explore like London, maybe, you know, the music scene or the songwriting community. I want to see what's here, what's out here for me more. What's, you know, what can I do
locally?
Here? Yeah, like what can I do? No, not locally. Like what can I do from here to spread globally?
Well, the thing is, I mean, having been in the industry for as long as I've been, not to toot the horn, but geography is no longer a factor as much as it once used to be. I mean, there used to be a time where if you weren't in New York, LA, or Nashville, you couldn't make it.
Exactly.
Now, if you've got the skills, you could literally be living in the most remote of places. Mind you, it's one thing if you're a touring musician versus a touring singer versus a songwriter. I think there are opportunities available today that weren't available before. So that's a good thing. But also, it also depends where you're trying to take what you want to do. You know, where you want to be based out of, all those things, you know, I think all that factors in. But that should kind of be freeing to someone like you, because you do have all the right tools, you know, to do all you need to do. I probably would have said LA, but I don't know that you need to be there. Not even, you could literally be anywhere and do what you're doing now.
I think so too, honestly, because when I was in the States, I was broke half the time, all the time. I feel like, you know, I'm able to, even though I'm doing like cover gigs right now, just right now, it's not going to be forever, that I'm able to make enough money from my music to sustain myself and also invest in my music. And I don't think that is possible anywhere else in the world, because you have to pay to be on stages anywhere else.
That's true. And the rates you make here,
it's
you
nothing.
Don't make that. A lot of people don't understand that. A lot of people that live here think it's, you know, the whole grass is greener on the other side. They don't know how well they have it here.
Yeah,
they have it good. Now, mind you, you have to be good. And like I said, your voice is exceptionally good.
Thank you.
Are you able to kind of sneak in some of your original stuff, or are you only doing covers?
I do sometimes. But you know, most of the venues are so strict about what they want you to do.
Of course.
And I want, mind you, I have lost gigs because of having a unique voice. I have lost gigs because of the way I sing. They just don't see that it fits the venue. Or,
they want vanilla. They want
what sound. What they want that. They want when it sounds like everybody else.
Sure.
And for me, every time that happens, I find this newfound strength in me that's like, because your purpose is bigger than this, and maybe that journey had to end there so a new one could begin.
What is your purpose? Let's talk about that.
I feel like I feel like at every point in my life I'm going to have a different purpose.
That's normal, but I'd like to know kind of where you operate from and kind of how you see yourself evolving and growing into wherever you end up, because it's okay not to know where you're going to be a year or 5 or 10 from now.
Tell me about it.
But I'm really interested in knowing where you are now, kind of, spiritually, mentally, physically, all that stuff, kind of what's keeping you anchored, what's driving you, and where that source of creativity comes from for you.
Honestly, like, it's not always easy waking up every morning and trying to be motivated doing what I do, because some days are just, the highs are really high and the lows are really low.
I know all about that.
Especially in this industry, like, I could have work for like a few months, like I could, and then I would have no work at all.
It's very cyclical.
It's so crazy. And, that has been so new to me. But I feel like what really drives me, regardless of what happens, is because I know that this thing was put in me for a reason, and I don't know why yet, because I come from a really a very different background, like, and I don't know anybody who's famous or successful in the music industry as a songwriter or a singer that is from my background, because it's unbelievable even to my family or the people around me that this is my journey, because like my mom, like, makes less than minimum wage. We don't come from a good background at all. And like, and I come from like South India, and my family is like a really, not my mother, but the rest of my family is like really rigid and really close-minded. And I'm just it's so weird to me even now, like, why me? And it's still a question.
Yeah.
But I'm understanding more and more why me. And so I think waking up and realizing that, okay, this gift was put in me for a purpose, to be a songwriter is and to be able to do what I want, which you talked about me being a really good songwriter, and I feel like it comes from a source that's probably not me. I always feel like when I'm writing or creating, it's coming from somewhere else.
I couldn't agree with you more. Listen, I feel like as a creator, there comes a point where you question whether you're just a vehicle, as in like something is coming through you versus, there's the whole ego that comes into play, and that's completely normal. Yeah. The ego is there.
I think a little ego is a little good. It's survival.
Absolutely. Yeah. You need it, but you have to kind of keep it at bay. You got to keep it in check, because it can overtake you. And that's all part of the journey, right? But I feel like, again, being that vehicle, wherever that source of creativity comes from, embracing it and letting it come through you, I think, is a very important thing. The fact that it has chosen you and you have answered that call says something. You now have a responsibility, right?
Exactly.
You have to nurture
it's a responsibility now, and I've come so far, and it's been such a struggle to get where I am, and I know that there's so much more to go. Like this, I almost feel like this is just the beginning for me, and it may not be for me, but in my career this feels like it's just like the beginning, because people are finally hearing about me. People are finally recognizing me or seeing me or hearing me out. And I feel like the consistent thing that happens to me on social media is usually young girls or even guys from my country who are like, oh my gosh, like I want to be a songwriter. I want to do what you do, and it's so inspiring that you do that. Yeah. A few years ago, I don't think I didn't have anybody else to look up to as a songwriter in India. In English,
of course, I get that. We're not talking, because there's a lot of talent
in pop, especially, to do what I do. And now it's kind of like, okay, it's my responsibility to kind of to represent that demographic, because a lot of my friends are struggling in their lives right now because their parents forced them to do something.
Of course, yeah.
To get into a field that they didn't want to be in. And I feel like, I want more people to be brave enough to do that and to believe in themselves, even when it's hard to believe in yourself.
It's not easy. It takes a lot of courage.
Yeah. And I feel like that courage was given to me, obviously, by my mother and by definitely a lot of people who've helped me throughout my journey that have come out of nowhere just to help me. And I'm like, this is not random. I have something to fulfill. And I'm sure, I know that it's through music, obviously. And now I feel like with what I'm creating, there's so many elements of Eastern music that is honestly like flowing through me subconsciously. It's not even conscious. And
that's going to happen whether you like it or not.
Exactly. And I love it because it's not forced and it's not fusion. It's this very raw element of Eastern music blending with pop. And I feel like the more I do it, the more I'm in the studio, I'm like, okay, this is my sound. Then this is what I need to show to the world. And this is what people are going to be exposed to. And I don't know if my purpose is small or big, but whatever it is, I want to magnify it.
I don't think it matters whether it's small or big. Listen, it is my theory that we are infinitely significant and infinitely insignificant at the same time. So it doesn't matter. It's all perspective, right?
Yeah.
But we're here for a reason, right? And it might be, it depends if you're looking at it from above, below, sideways, whatever. It might be minute from one angle, but from the angle, it's like, it's everything. You being or not being here literally throws everything off. You know what I'm saying?
That's very true.
So again, that's a theory. I can't back that up with any hard data, but that's how I feel,
Yeah.
So I don't think that should deter you from continuing to do what you do.
Yeah.
Do you associate with pop as an artist? Would you say, listen, I'm a pop head through and through, right? So a lot of people that aren't into pop, you feel like you have to defend pop as in like, guys, it's not what you think. So would you describe yourself as a pop artist?
Yes.
Or is there, if you had to say pop plus, what would that plus be? So
it would be like alternative pop or dark pop.
Okay.
Because there's a lot of dark melodies and concepts and, lyrics that are dark or, very, very introspective. You heard Muse. It's just a really introspective.
It's gorgeous.
Thank you.
It's so beautiful.
It's honestly, so far, I've written many songs after that as well, but I feel like Muse is, personally, I feel like it's one of my best songwriting works, and I don't know when the next one will be. To overstate
you can't force that.
I can't force that.
Listen, what separates the amateurs from the pros, right? Have you heard the whole showing up is half the battle?
Yes.
To me, showing up is the battle. You show up, you're gonna win.
Yeah.
The pros show up and can do it on demand. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's not to say you're gonna write a hit every single time, but that consistency, that process allows you to just, you're saying I'm here, I'm ready to receive, and I'm ready to output, right?
Yes.
So just keep doing that. That's really the only thing I could impress upon you, is that you've got the goods. Just keep showing up, keep doing it even when it's tough, and look for the tough, because the tough, when you're on the edges, when you're super happy and when you're super down, there's a lot of contrast. There's a lot of things you can pull from. It's hard to pull, in my opinion, unless you get to a point where you're super comfortable with both ends. You're like even in the middle where you're just not blah or meh, but you can pull from both experiences. You need both those
creativity from both. And I get to write about, both of them. And I feel like as an artist, it's a blessing to go through so much because there's just so much that I feel all the time. And it's a blessing and a curse. But I feel like it's my perspective. I can see it as a blessing all the time, but that's up to me to see that as it is. And I feel like as artists or creators of any kind, it's truly a blessing because you get to be in touch with yourself more than any other human being on this planet. And I think that's a gift in itself because you get to really, really experience life.
Absolutely.
The depth of it.
Let's talk about your writing process. Do you start with lyrics first or music, or do you have a process, or is it all over the place? Or?
I've been asked this so many times. I do. It's everything, honestly. Sometimes, the lyrics come to me first. Sometimes the melody comes to me first. Sometimes, I write top lines if the client wants it, or even for my own songs, like if a producer has a beat. and that would spark this creativity for me to add on to it.
Do you think you're strong? The reason I'm asking is not because I'm familiar with everything you've just mentioned, but there's a chance that some of whoever is listening or watching may not know the difference. Like a lot of people think music is music and then lyrics are lyrics. And then a lot of people don't know what production is. A lot of people don't know what top line or vocal melody is.
Yeah. So, or even songwriting, to be honest.
Yeah, of course. So, I mean, I'm assuming that whoever's watching, if they're into creativity, a lot of these terms aren't new. They may have been exposed to them, but I kind of want to talk to the person that may just be stumbling upon this and kind of curious about it, what those things are. So the reason I'm asking is I want to know if you feel like you're stronger in one of those areas you just mentioned, or does it just kind of vary based on the project? Or
it varies. When I started out, I was really good as a singer, and I was really good at melodic writing, not as much lyrics. I was good at lyrics, but I wasn't strong.
Yep.
But the more I co-wrote, I got really strong with lyrics. So now I feel like it's a balance of everything. Like if someone throws something at me, I can tackle all of them. That's only because it's not because I was born with it. It was because I practiced it.
That's what I was saying.
I practiced the craft. I
Yep.
showed up to every session. I showed up to every session, even if I was, heartbroken, even if I was not feeling well. Like I would go to studio sessions sick. I still do.
Yep.
I show up all the time, and I know it's not always healthy, and I'm trying to find that balance for my mental health, but that's just who I am. I will just show up no matter what.
Yep.
But because of that, I'm able to, tackle all aspects of songwriting.
Sure.
So songwriting is basically, melody and lyric writing both together.
Yep.
And which is not, it's a very different concept in let's say India, because they have lyricists and they have composers.
Yep.
And as songwriters in the West, or as a songwriter,
Sure.
you do all of it, and that takes a lot of practice.
Of course,
because you're tackling so many aspects of music, and then I also studied like demo production in
I was just going to get
college.
into producing. Do you get to produce your own stuff at
I
all?
do get to co-produce.
Okay, that's
so
good.
I don't fully produce because I feel like that requires a really different headspace,
Yeah, of
which
course.
I don't have. I'm a very restless person.
Yep.
So I do have ideas. I do co-produce stuff.
Yep.
I do come up with like riffs, and I come up with like beats, and I send demos,
Or
but
concepts.
and I think that is co-producing.
Of
but
course.
I'm not really into mixing and mastering, and
Yeah.
I can't do it. Just I know what I cannot do, and I don't touch that.
And that's important. And listen, another thing is, the reason I'm asking that is I feel like if you feel like you are strong in one thing, that's not to say you don't work on the things you aren't as strong in, but focus and lean into the stuff you're strongest at. I think that will get you much further than trying to balance everything. I remember when I first got into it, I had to be the best keyboard player. I had to be the best writer. I had to be the best all that. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
Whatever you're strong at, work on the other stuff.
Yeah.
But lean into the stuff.
Honing the craft.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Like I know I'm not the best guitarist. I know I'm not the best pianist, and I don't have to be. I'm just accompanying myself with those instruments. That's all.
That's all you need. I'm assuming you're self-taught at piano as well as guitar. Or did you take any formal lessons in either?
So guitar, I'm self-taught.
Okay.
But piano, I actually did have to take piano classes, basic classes at Berklee, because in the songwriting degree you do have to take piano classes. But that really helped me because I did jazz piano, and I was so frustrated at it. I like jazz now, but when I was in college, I just didn't. The theory
really
of
heavy.
it,
Yep.
it's really heavy, and I was new to it. It was a whole new world, and I was struggling with my classes.
Are you able to pull from some of those experiences that you were exposed to?
Of course. I mean, I feel like, my piano skills were like, I feel it out. Like I actually love writing on the piano more now than I don't write on the guitar now. I just perform with the guitar. But
what changed for you? Because I spoke with Dina last week about that. I know she's a guitar based and she wants to learn piano. There's something that opens up, because if you play the exact same chord progressions in one instrument, your mind, you start to hear harmonies differently. You start to hear the top lines differently. Did you experience some of that coming from the guitar going into piano?
I feel like the piano gave me so much more freedom.
Okay.
And I'm all for freedom. I don't like feeling
restriction. No,
I do not like being restricted.
That's something that I feel you will get into. Are you familiar with? I also mentioned this. Are you familiar with? I'm sure you are. Chris Martin from Coldplay.
Yeah.
He plays both. Guaranteed, when he writes at a guitar, he comes up with something, and then when he does the same thing. So when you restrict yourself, if you say, I'm only going to play a 3-chord song, in essence, that's restrictive, right?
Yeah.
But if you know how to milk the 3 chords.
Oh, yes. I mean, just the 3 chords what I mean. On the piano, like there's like inversions. With the voicings,
of course. Yeah,
and like, you know, on the chord, you start to come up with these melodies.
Of course.
And, you know, obviously you can finger pick on the guitar, but I'm not that skilled at the guitar.
Got it.
So for me, the piano is like, it opens up a whole new world. And you can also do like any... and I think the feeling of writing on the guitar is so different. The strumming, as opposed to, you know, like the like
the technique is different. Yeah,
it's different, and the way that the same rhythm on both instruments is going to be so different. They're going to sound different. And I somehow felt like when I started writing on the piano, it just opened up a lot for me. And I also write with no instruments.
Okay, gotcha.
Just out of space, like out of nothing. I come up with melodies and lyrics in my sleep, and I wake up and I quickly record in my voice memos. Or I came up with a lot of melodies in the shower. Like Reveal Me, I came up with it in the shower.
Do you dream? Do you have dreams of melodies?
I do. Okay. I do. A lot of my melodies and lyrics. I dream about it, and in my dream I wake up. I actually wake up and to record it because I don't want to miss it.
I encourage you to always do that. Yeah. Do not ever fall into the trap. Oh, I'll remember this one. No. Have you ever had that where you're like, I'll remember, you wake up and you're like, what was it again?
It's happened with dreams, but not music. Okay. Like dreams, I'm like, I should wake up and like, you know, to think about it. But like,
I've had that. And I've had voice memos like, I'm like, oh, no. In my mind, it made perfect sense. But when I listen to it, I'm like, what am I singing? I can't even tell.
Like in the beach, or if I'm at a you know, like a get together, randomly, I'm like, may I use the restroom? I just go to the restroom and record it, because my mind is always thinking like that. Yeah. It's always functioning that way. But piano and guitar, and you know, honestly, like writing with no music and writing over pre-made music, it's all different experiences, but create really beautiful results.
Is one easier than the other for you, or not necessarily? In terms of process, like
I feel like the piano is easier for me in terms of process.
No, but I mean, like, okay, so you have pre-existing music that you write something to versus pre-existing lyrics that you write music to versus from nothing. You just come up with a melody and a lyric.
Oh, no, they're all the same.
All the same? Okay.
Yeah.
That's great. That's great. That's great, because that opens you up to so many, so many.
Yeah. I mean, at this, like over the pandemic, that was the way I was making money. I was writing for producers and DJs and artists, and that was the way I was sustaining myself. So that was a new practice for me. Like as a songwriter, I grew so much in the past year because I was doing projects for other people, and everybody wanted different processes. And even I'm doing that even now. You know, I'm writing top line, but some days they just want me to. They tell me like, I want a song about blah blah blah, and I have to come up. So they give
you the topic or whatever,
and I have to come up with it.
Is there enough demand for that here that to sustain you? Like if you were
I don't do it in the UAE, so it's online.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
So I work with clients all over.
That's perfect. That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Like, again, geography not a factor anymore.
Not at all. Like the past year, I've worked with producers from Korea and the UK and the US and the UAE, of course, with
amazing.
Zena and India. I mean, I'm like, this is just a huge part of the world. I mean, these are like really important places in the world that I've been able to, you know, make a mark. My name is out there.
That's amazing.
Like a recent cover I did, it wasn't a song I wrote, but that kind of blew up. Like it's noticed in Iceland.
Of all places, right?
But it's like so cool because, you know, there's literally, we say music has no borders.
The world
and it doesn't.
Is this small now. It's tiny. It's tiny. I mean,
I know.
Listen, I think it's a matter of time. You're on the right path. You're doing exactly what you need to be doing.
Thank you.
Is there any artist that you would like to collaborate with, either as a songwriter or as a singer? Or I want to kind of get into who some of your influences were, whether it's early on or today. Kind of where do you draw inspiration from? What sounds you like? That kind of stuff.
I grew up listening to a lot of Taylor Swift.
Okay.
She's my songwriting inspiration. I was really young when I listened to her, and just, you know, her as a really young female songwriter who kind of just, I think to date she's one of the best songwriters in the world, and just with her new album she blew me away, and she continues to blow people away with
the
her
folklore
songwriting.
one,
Folklore and Evermore.
Yeah.
I love Evermore more, but I grew up listening to a lot of Taylor Swift, Katy Perry, Christina Aguilera, Britney Spears, like early, and then I listened to a lot of like early rock, like 2000s rock, you know. So I think that was kind of like, honestly, my knowledge of music at that point was very on the surface. I would listen to what was on the radio, because we didn't have streaming platforms back then. We didn't have a lot of exposure, and I was in India. Like
that opened it up quite a bit once that happened.
Exactly.
For sure.
But no, honestly, when I went to the States was when I opened up to so many new. I heard about so many musicians, and then I started getting into like Led Zeppelin, and I had like a rock phase. And rock and roll phase.
Yeah, sure. More classic rock leaning. Yeah.
I'm not. I mean, Led Zeppelin. Honestly, that's just one of them. And then like I had the country phase. I used to listen to Shania Twain and Johnny Cash, and Miranda Lambert. I honestly, like, now I look back and I've literally had like influences from every genre. And then I had Nora Jones, like jazzy pop. And then obviously like, again, rock, but it's like new rock, like Imagine Dragons. And then like it kind of fell into like pop, alternative, R&B. And as I listened to, I grew as a songwriter, and I found more of myself in the music I was creating. Like somehow all of these influences kind of came together, and then there was like an 80% of Varsha in it, and then like that was it. Like that's what I'm making now. It's like me. But I had to go through all those phases and all those influences. And I love Lana Del Rey. She's one of my favorite musicians. I have so many influences. Shakira.
No, that's great. But I love that diversity, because it speaks volume. And I, not to say that I hear it, but I feel like in order for you to arrive at wherever you are musically now, that doesn't happen without having been exposed to every single one of those artists you mentioned,
like the ambient stuff that I write, like I pull a lot of it from Keane. Keane is one of my favorite bands. Keane. I'm such a Keane head.
Somewhere Only We Know is Everybody's Changing.
Yeah, I love those two songs. But I had a conversation with a person recently, a musician, which I can't name. But I was talking about how I love like all their songs that are now popular, like Hamburg Song and Try Again, Atlantic, and all these songs that are like very small. And that's who I am. Like even Taylor Swift, I would listen to all the songs that are not
the obscure one.
The obscure ones, the ones, and those are honestly my favorites.
What are you drawn to in those obscure? Because clearly you can tell something that's got massive.
Emotional delivery, which is something that I really focus on in my songs.
I hear that, and it's present. But the thing about your stuff can be misconstrued as obscure, but it's not.
It's not obscure. I know.
Do you know what I mean? Like
it's like a balance
that's
between.
That's what I'm saying, and that's what I love about it. That's what I love about it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I try to, I remind myself of this is something that I've learned the past 2 years, is that you release something for yourself and then you release something for the audience.
Of course.
And I'm trying to I'm finding a balance between like, putting something out for like a niche, and then putting something out that more people would like, and then like putting something out that would make me happy.
Of course. I think the best of both worlds is doing something that makes you happy that also resonates with a lot of people.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I think.
Because I'm sure that like there's going to be a kid just like me who's probably going to look back at my stuff and going to like Muse and not like Summer Fever.
Of course. That's normal. When it comes to taste, you cannot dictate what someone's going to like.
You can't.
I may like water, you like coffee. Doesn't make you wrong, doesn't make me right.
No.
It's just that freedom has to be out there, but you have to please both you and the audience if it's going to be a career,
Absolutely.
But that's incredible.
But I think the goal of any musician should be to create a trend and not to follow one. And that's something that I consistently tell myself, and to everybody who's constantly telling me to make music that's already famous or in or trending. I'm like, no, because it's going to go out. But someday if I make a trend, then that's something that's mine.
Of course. And I'm glad you're aware of that now, because it took me a lot longer than I wish it had for me, because again, being the pop head that I am, I was really closed off to non-pop stuff. Mind you, pop is a super wide.
Like what kind of pop? Like Michael Jackson pop?
Yeah, Michael Jackson, anything that is pop, but it didn't just have to be down the middle pop. I mean, yes, Michael Jackson was a huge influence, but Mariah Carey, early 90s R&B. I mean, I can name, to 80s British pop, to Australian, to, like it was diverse within pop, but it was very much pop. So I wasn't super exposed to rock or country or other genres just because I'm a melody fiend. You know, I love hooks. If something doesn't stick, it just doesn't. It's hard to explain, but that closed me off for a long time until I was exposed to other genres that I was able to pull and kind of work that in. But the fact, again, that you were aware of that at this stage of your career, I think is very important. And I echo your sentiment. It's very important to strive to create a lane that's your own.
Yes.
And
because no one can take that away from you, and you're going to stand out in it, and you either stand alone or people follow that path.
And you mentioned that you're a rebel, so I think that kind of it's consistent with your personality.
Sometimes I am a rebel without a cause too, and that's just most of the time with a cause.
Lean into that stuff. Again, your intuition, whatever it says, just follow that. Yeah, I think it's there for a reason.
Yeah. Totally.
So who would you like to write for?
Yeah, write for. Honestly, I would love to write for Rihanna.
Okay.
I think that would be so fun. Because like I've been making like really sassy, sensual music.
I'll play you a few things after we're done here.
Oh, yay.
It has something to do with Rihanna. Yeah.
Oh, fun. I would love to, I think I would love to have do a collaboration with Taylor Swift someday. Like a song with her, not for her.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, you could.
I would love to work with Selena Gomez for sure. I love the way that she delivers emotions.
Yeah.
I would love to release a song with Keen.
Okay,
and Coldplay, of course.
That would be good.
I think I would love to open for them, like at concerts.
Have you seen them in concert?
I've seen them live on YouTube, but one of my dreams is to see Keen live because I've seen how the energy of Keen on stage.
Yeah,
and it's the same feeling I get when I watch Led Zeppelin on stage.
Yeah,
it's this like
out-of-body experience.
It's out-of-body experience. It's honestly is because, as an artist, I don't really talk to the audience much. That's just not who I am.
Sure. Yeah.
I don't really like to...
Why is that? Is there a reason?
I don't know. Honestly, I feel like every time that I do it sounds really forced because I feel like I connect to myself more with music.
Sure.
And there's this thing when I'm on stage is that like I kind of lose myself.
Sure.
So when I say something, it sounds really forced because I'm not with the audience anymore.
Yeah.
And so it's weird because like I know artists that are not very talkative. Like I watched Lana Del Rey live at F1 Abu Dhabi.
Yeah.
And she's not a talker, but her music connected. And I feel like that's the kind of person that I am. And I think Keen is like that.
Yeah.
They don't do a lot of talking, but their music does a lot of the talking. And I think because a lot of people here have told me, why don't you like talk more on stage, like crack some jokes? I'm like, that's just not who I am.
Stay true to who you are.
It's not.
Listen, if at some point you loosen up, it's not that you're tight or round or anything, but if that's what feels right to you, unless, look, a lot of people put on this facade, like, oh, I don't think that's the case here.
No.
I feel like, turn off, you should mute the noise. Whoever tells you to do something that doesn't connect with you, say, noted.
I know what
I'll take that into consideration. I'm going to continue. I'm going to do me, right?
Yeah.
If in the future you find that you need to do more of that and you do, so be it.
Yeah.
Don't put that pressure on yourself.
If I feel like on stage, if I feel that energy, I will. I just follow what I feel.
Then you're on the right path.
It's not always a popular opinion, and I feel like I'm young, and I do get affected by what people say about me or what people say to me. Recently I sent a song to the CEO of a really big label in India, like one of the big three. And he was like, this is a really big platform, and we only consider serious singer-songwriters. Who have really large following. Like he said, serious singer-songwriters.
He's gonna eat his own words in a very short time. He will.
When I got that, I definitely, a part of me was hurt because I'm like, you didn't even take the time to get to know me as a person or as an artist, because if you did, you would not say that. And if but I messaged my friend and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna talk about this at the Grammys someday.
You will.
And that cave, I feel like, but when these things happen, I feel like, okay, God is putting these things in my life, or whatever, universe, whatever is putting this in my life, because it's like sometimes if I feel a little demotivated, there's like a push this, and it's like it fires me up.
Just use it as a fire.
It's a fuel. It's a fuel.
That's
it's
exactly
definitely.
what it is. Yeah.
but these are things that a lot of artists go through, and to be able to go through that, it's like, okay, I honestly felt like, okay, you know what, Varsha, you're doing something right. The fact that someone as big as that would say that to you, and really burn that bridge, like, wow.
Varsha, listen, I think the more you seek internal validation, which it sounds like you have, but I think it sounds like it needs a little more work, and that's perfectly normal.
Absolutely.
Look inward, don't look outward. It doesn't matter what other people think. It's you and the audience. Once you make that connection and it grows, that's when those people who are most of which, mind you, are in the wrong position, right?
Absolutely.
They may have been there a long time. That doesn't mean they know what they're talking about. Yes. Now, to be fair, a lot of them do know what they're talking about. And it just might, listen, again, it's like you're trying to sell coffee and they like water. If it's a taste thing, you can't fault them for not liking what they like. Maybe they're honest in saying that they don't like that. It's just how they say it, right?
Yeah.
Maybe they
but put down an artist and, I think undervalue who they are.
That reflects who they are. I think that speaks to some insecurities they may have.
Of course.
I mean, I don't have the whole picture, right?
Of course.
Again, just use it as fuel and just next, someone or not someone, you already know you're good. I think you already know you're good. Yes. It's just a matter of the rest of the people that need to catch up, right?
Of course.
And it doesn't matter whether it's 2 people, whether it's 2 billion people, or if it's 2 billion planets, right? It doesn't matter. Do it for the love. The love that you have for what you do reflects in what you do. Just stay true to that. The rest takes care of itself. I'm telling you, so I'm not worried about that at all.
But it's totally human to, feel that way. And
of course.
I'm sure that there's going to be a lot more coming up. And these are like little preparations for it.
Yeah.
Because I'm doing something completely out of the box for someone who's from where I am.
Sure.
And there's going to be good and bad to everything.
Of course.
And I feel like my mom was always telling me that, these are things that you have to become really strong before you get to where you want to be, because you have to have really
thick skin.
Right? I don't want to have thick skin. Ever, because I still want to be vulnerable always, but I feel like I need to be able to mute things. That is something, like you said, mute things. I think that's something I need to learn how to do. Yeah.
A good friend of mine, a very famous mix engineer, calls it signal to noise ratio. You want more signal, less noise, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like completely cut out the noise and as much as you can. It's not completely gone.
It's going to be there. It's going to be there. You're able to handle it better.
Static.
Exactly. You're able to handle it much better. Is there anything you'd like to plug or that you're working on currently that you want to kind of share with whoever's listening or watching us?
I just wanted to say that I'm working on a lot of music right now that is more true to me than anything people have heard before.
Yeah, that's very exciting.
I have a couple of collaborations coming up, an English-Arabic collaboration,
nice.
An English-Hindi collaboration,
very nice.
And an English, but with like an Arabic vibe.
Okay.
And all my upcoming music is, it has either like Middle Eastern elements. It's really funny because when I was in India or the US too, there was always this kind of Arabic touch to my music, which I didn't understand. But ending up in Dubai, it feels like more like this is the right place, because I'm obviously working with Ali. Yep. I'm working with another producer called Amin here. He's Moroccan. He's incredibly talented, really low key. Very cool. He's been creating magic with my songs. That's and awesome. What I write, and bringing a new kind of life to, he produced Summer Fever and the Arabic remix too.
Yeah.
So I feel like I get to work with so many different producers, and I'm working with one more from California, and that has like this kind of Latin vibe. So it's let's just say there's going to be a diversity of music, which is kind of a reflection of who I am, because I'm a very diverse person who's experienced different
in a diverse place
with a diverse thinking. So I'm obviously not going to put myself in a box. So just the music that I'm going to be putting out is just going to be something that I absolutely believe in, to be something that is new.
That's great.
To people.
I think it's great. And listen, I mean, genres are not as important as they once were. Before, if you weren't pop or you weren't one thing, it was difficult. With more genres blending and merging, I think that supports, that creates the platform, or it paves the way for what you're doing. You know what I mean? Like when you talk about timing, it sounds like things are kind of lining up in your favor, right?
I hope so.
I think so. That's my feeling. But
Thank you.
Before we wrap up, I know you mentioned something about ice. I want you to talk about that if you'd like.
Of course. So, talking about music, I have this mini album coming out very soon, which talks about racism in the industry and immigration. I know this has been a topic of discussion the past 2 years amongst a lot of people, including celebrities, talking about it as defenders. But I haven't. I'm sure there are songs out there, but I haven't, heard a song that's from the point of view of someone who's been through that. So 2 years ago, I was traveling to LA to meet my best friend for 2 weeks. And I was detained in LA at the LAX airport. And the next day, they were supposed to send me downtown, handcuffed to the facility. And I knew that I wouldn't get out of there if I went there. Yeah. But they couldn't, apparently, like the rules, they couldn't hold me in the airport for more than 2 days, just the rules. But somehow my mother reached out to an aunt that I haven't spoken to in the US, and they quickly booked my tickets for that day.
Got it.
It was like 4 layovers, but whatever. And she was just like, she has to get home.
Get out of there. Yeah.
Get out of there. So like literally the officers were waiting for me outside, and then they were like, your tickets are booked. Like you can go home. I was like, God. And
you came back here or back to India at that time?
I went back to India because it's the passport.
Oh, right. So it's,
I have to go back to the country that I'm from. Obviously after that I came to Dubai, which was traumatic. So I had like 6 months of intensive therapy. Even until like that past few months, I used to wake up with nightmares. Wow. Sometimes when I'm cooking or doing something random, I just stop because I freeze. Yeah. Because it was so traumatic. I don't think I've experienced something so traumatic, even more than my dad's death. Like it was something that, and after that, I met a few people in there with me, and I honestly made friends out of strangers. Like I still, she texts me, and she's from Czech, and she's like, "Hey girl, how are you doing?" And she was like, I still feel like trauma sometimes. How are you? How's everything?
She went through something similar.
Yeah, she was with me in the same room.
Yeah. For similar reasons or not necessarily?
I don't know. I don't know. Yeah. But she was there for a wedding.
Oh wow.
And there were a lot of obviously a lot of Latin Americans there. Yeah. But I got to experience what it feels like to be
discriminated
against, and what it feels like to be a nobody and have no support. Yeah. And to feel like you are unwanted in a place. And that's when I decided that I am going to go to a place where I'm wanted, appreciated, seen, heard, and respected. And I was like, you know what? I didn't wait. Like I was in bed for a few days. Like I didn't see anybody. But I think a lot of it was shattered for me because up until then I was like, to make it, I have to be in the States. And then this was a plan, But honestly, after that, when I moved to Dubai, like my career just accelerated. I don't know what it was. It was almost like the universe pulling me back to where I belong, or showing me another way. I don't know what it is. I in the EP that I'm releasing, the song is called Fortress, which is about
your experience,
a complete experience. And what is beautiful about that song is that when I actually started writing a few pieces of it during the detention. So I took a notepad. They obviously have books and notepads. And I was crying. I was sitting on the floor. I was writing after one of my panic attacks. And what's beautiful is that through the song, I talk about what's happening, but I say that I still hold star stripes in my heart. Yeah. Because I'm always going to hold love for that part of the world and my memories there.
Of course,
and for the people that I met. Mm-hmm. And it's not the people. In India, there's corruption, there's immigration policies that's not favorable towards a lot of communities.
Of course.
But for the first time, I felt like what it feels like to be an outcast. And that's how a lot of people feel in India. Yeah. So that opened, and that is a purpose for me. Yeah. That added on to my purpose now.
Fuel, just more fuel.
And, I was so scared to talk about it. And my mom was like, are you sure you want to talk about it? You may not be able to enter. And I'm like, but I'm not saying something that is wrong. I'm not saying something that's hateful.
This is your experience.
This is my experience. This is what I felt. And this is me communicating that through art. And this is me communicating that. And I'm sure that I read about so many testimonials and of people who went through that, the same thing. And they'd all somehow recovered from it. And that gave me hope. So the song actually ends with, I'm going to be fine no matter where I go, heart on my sleeve and back on the road. So it's like, I'm going to be fine wherever I go. And that's honestly how I feel and how I felt. And, but I still, it's like, it's almost like I only want to go there if they want me, not me forcing that to happen.
You won't need to, trust me. You're on the right path. You'll be there sooner than you think, in my opinion. Let's just get past this COVID situation we're dealing with. Let's hopefully get back to normal. And like I said, Varsha,
there's so much more of the world.
Yeah, there is. And hopefully this is, water under the bridge. I'm really sorry you had to go through that experience. It sounds
I'm sure
really
there was
awful.
a reason.
Listen, I mean, maybe this song will, guaranteed, whoever hears that song is going to connect to it. I haven't heard it, but just from having heard some of your stuff and hearing your story, I'd love to hear it. I think it'll resonate, and it's really unfortunate that people have to go through that,
Yeah.
But
I'm sure people have had it worse than I am. They've been in cages. So I was in a room. I had like a bed.
Right. It's not to compare.
It's not to compare. I'm just saying that what I felt was so intense that I got to think about what it would be for people who didn't even have that kind of terrible luxury.
Yeah, of course.
You know what I mean? Like a terrible luxury. It's what it is.
Yeah, but it makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
So in closing, for anyone who's listening or watching us, where can we direct them to listen to your stuff or watch your material? What's your social media handle? Is it the same across all social media?
It's the same. It's Varsha Vinn everywhere. Varsha and Vinn. So VARSHA.
I'll put it on the screen. Yeah.
So it's the same on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, everywhere. It's the same. Spotify.
Yeah.
Wherever people listen to it, it's the same name. It's the songs and lots of music coming up.
I'm so excited to hear your new material. Whatever you sent me was incredible. I'm sorry I couldn't remember Muse.
It's okay.
Because it's, I've been
you will now.
No, exactly. I'll tell you, your voice really, really, really touched me. And again, I don't get impressed super easily.
Thank you so much.
Your voice is amazing. I wish you nothing but the best. Of things, and you're on the right path. I'm super excited for where you're going to go.
Thank you so much.
Hopefully, in the future when you release some new material, I'd love to have you back on to talk.
Absolutely,
about the new stuff.
Absolutely, I would love to be here.
Thank you so much,
Thank you for
Varsha.
having me.
It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
This is the new handshake.
Yeah, exactly. Cheers.